Hello everyone. First I should say it's a really great pleasure for me to be here alongside friends, women and colleagues who I respect and I am inspired by, and thanks so much for having me here. Today I'd like to share with you all how photography became beyond anything else and became so important part of my life for me. It started with this photograph. This is a image of my father. I was born in 1980 in Iran, and as some of you might know, in 1979 in Iran, the Islamic Republic revolution happened. And because of the revolution which happened in the country, it happened, I can say, within each family. And one of those families was my family. And because of the revolution, my dad was a few years in prison, and then he had to leave Iran and he moved to France. For me, this image was my dad to me, and the proof of his existence, because he was absent, but at the same time he was present in this image. And as a child, you can imagine, I could take it to school, show it to friends, and say, here is my dad, I have him, he is away, but he will come back. So I started to love the photographs and to become connected with them and even have conversation with the photographs. And it wasn't just because of this one, because so many of my families, they had to leave Iran after the revolution. So that was the first stage of interest, and I didn't know anything about John Berger's ideas or Ronald Barth's ideas about arresting the time and having someone in the photograph to reminding yourself continuously about the past and bring the past to your present life. But later on, a few years after that, I started to study photography at Art University of Tehran. And because of the love which I had towards the archive photographs and family photographs, I applied in the very first year of my study. I applied to work for Golestan Museum in Tehran, which is a museum now, but it used to be the main palace of Iran 173 years ago. And 163 years ago in Iran, women became the first time subjects of the camera. And the photographer was the king of Iran, which you can see. This is one of his very first self-portrait, which belonged to 163 years ago. And I started to have my research on 48 women's archive photographs in this museum. And first I was thinking I can go and read the photographs and read about the life of these women, because the king of Iran, he had 117 wives. And through these photographs, he was a very lucky man, I think, in one point. So, that wasn't very simple, as I thought, because being in the same place, and I can remember the first day when I stood actually in front of the same mirror. And I was thinking, like, I was seeing these women and they were present in that place. And I was thinking maybe instead of just looking to their lives through the photographs, looking at the glorious representation of these women of the palace, maybe I need to do some research. I need to find their handwritings and see what was their life. How did it look like, rather than these ceremonies with these clothes, which was for those days, I guess, really expensive because it was by silk, and then showing them how grateful they were in their life. And that was the time when I found the handwriting of this beautiful lady, which belonged to 157 years ago. Her name is Taj al-Saltaneh. He was king's daughter. And I found this is a quote from her, which she mentioned, the life of Iranian women is composed of two colors, black and white. In public, they love to wear black clothes of mourning, when they were, and then white for the ceremony. I, as one of these women, preferred the white ceremony to the black. I always opt for wearing black, because compared to the dark life, it is a broad daylight. So after that, I had this chance to find one of the poets of one of these women, and I found it's a really huge contrast and a strong contrast between their representation through their words, through their handwritings, rather than their presentation as a royal women. And at the same time, those days, obviously, I was a girl in Iran, and my society is a religious society. And as you know, in the ideology of religious society, there are some limitations of portray a woman. The void of emotion and reality fills the subject. In today's Islamic society, the woman becomes a tool in the service of photography, since in the personal domain, all kind of photographs are allowed. In public, there are specific standards for photographs. And that was what I could see every day. That was the party which I had with my friends at night, and the day after, go to the corner shop, buy the newspaper, and this is your image. And again, it reminds me the contrast which I could see through that histories and that historical images. And I thought maybe it could take me to one project, maybe it would be a bridge between these two representations of women, because those days that was part of my research, that within each of us identities exist, and which all the identities follows different direction. And the identity is something that before it actually connects or relates to us, it would have connected to others and to our society sometimes. And for me, as a girl within one of these societies in Iran, I could feel that my identity relates to my society, to my government, to the people who I live with. So it take me to my first photographic project as a BA student. And in this project, I covered and concealed the face of contemporary women behind the mask of the past. Because after years, the same restrictions, they exist. But the main purpose of this project, or the main message of this project, at least for me as a photographer, was what is behind this face. What is behind this historical face and this mask and this false face, I could call it. I started to take these photographs indoor, actually, because I didn't have permission because of the subject. In some countries, it's not very easy, like France. In Iran, you need to have permission to take the photographs. And then after a few months, I created a very beautiful live, and I told them I want to take the photographs of different parks in Tehran. And they gave me the permission in 10 minutes' time. So at first I located the women somewhere close to the trees, and I pretended I am taking the photographs of these parks and these trees, and I could take these masks to public places. But gradually different stories happened. And what I learned about this photograph, it was the self-censorship which was inside these women. Because when they could see and they could feel I was photographing, unconsciously, they, as you see with the flowers or with the hand, these women, they covered themselves. And it happens so many times. Here, this girl with these papers. And for taking these photographs, I took different masks, false faces, or these historical faces, and the women, the subjects, they decided which face could cover their real face. So it was a collaboration. And then I did bring the stories of the women which had abortion because she became pregnant with her boyfriend and it was illegal. And then I found the same story which belonged to 97 years ago in Iran. So I combined her face with the contemporary body of that woman. And then after that, I was really much still interested to find my real, I cannot say real identity, because we all of us, within all of us, there are so many eyes. Me as a mother, me as a student, me as a friend, me as a daughter, me as a photographer, but at least for your representation, which you have, your daily life representation, you need to know which one is closer to me. And I did need to know those days because I wasn't sure, is Amak the one who covered herself and go out to the university or even for shopping, or is the one which is at home without any even discussions of religion? Which one is closer to me? But at the same time, I wasn't really able to tell the stories by words. I was really enjoying to tell the stories with lights, with the photographs, and bring the words and talk through the photographs. But unfortunately, because of after doing my BA and MA in Iran, they didn't accept my proposal for the PhD. But those days, I was traveling to UK a lot to visit my sister, and then I found it out at Newport University. They were they were accepting some applications and proposals for the PhD. I applied and I started to do my PhD in 2009 at Newport University. And my main subject was the representation of Iranian women through the camera and the double identity of these women. But then when I moved to UK, I found it out maybe as a Persian girl, I have more than this double identity, because when I was introduced to my friends, they didn't know anything about me as a woman who lived in Iran. They just knew whatever they could see through the media, through the news, the woman in black. They were so surprised. How can you do PhD, Amak? Can you go to university in Iran? Or can you have a boyfriend in Iran? Can you drive in Iran? And then I was thinking, okay, so maybe it's time to, more than looking to the similarities between the contemporary face of Iranian people, women, and the faces of the women in the past, maybe I need to look towards the differences and to see how different they can be. And that time when I was doing my research, I was actually introduced to these ideas by Foucault, the politics of identity, which was introduced in 1970, and it discussed that we are adopting these identities, but at the same time, each individual can can create an identity in between those identities which she's adopting or he's adopting. And that same year, I had to go to Iran because unfortunately my father passed away, and I went to Iran, and because of some problems which I had at the airport, I was arrested in Iran. And that was a big life lesson for me, because when I was there, obviously I was with other women for a few days in the prison, and I could see these women, they were silent, but they were not voiceless. Actually, they were really powerful, they were really brave. And as a photographer, first, absolutely, I thought I'm not going to take any photographs because I couldn't say goodbye to my dad because of photography. I was angry, obviously. But then I decided if I want to take photographs, I want to express something different with these photographs. Because these women, they are silent, but they are not voiceless. And they have so many things to say, and they can express themselves with simple things. One of those things was the knot for me, because before losing my dad, whenever I was in Iran, I used to wear this flowery scarf, green or red, with a lipstick and go, and for me it was kind of protest against the standards of living. But then one morning after my dad passed away, I was going out and I was wearing my scarf like always, because like when you have your lunchbox with you, we carry this scarf everywhere in Iran with us from morning till afternoon, and that is part of us, and you used to that. When I moved here to UK for a few days, I was feeling naked to go out without the scarf, and it was really strange for me. So that morning I was wearing my scarf and I found it, wow, this is black, and this knot is so sad. It was so different, and I was thinking, so maybe I can express how I feel with this simple knot without saying even any word. And it's not just me, maybe I should look at other women. And that was the time when I started to work on this project. So these are documentary photographs of women in Iran, in the streets, in public places, in different cities of Iran. And as you see, and as I saw, they were religious nuts, sad one, young one, pretty one, tired one, old one. So what I learned, you can talk, you can express sometimes your feelings towards the standards, towards the rules, without saying any word. Because doing and untying a knot every morning in front of the mirror is reminding oneself about the religion. You should wear it, do it like this. But at the same time, you can decide how to wear that with this heart, with these diamonds on these pins, or how you feel you can be yourself. Okay. And then it is ongoing project. On this project, I asked these women, what would you wear instead of the knot? Unfortunately, I couldn't finish this project because I couldn't go to Iran, but the response was really beautiful, and we had this intimate conversation. This one was a little bit crazy. I didn't expect that, and I guess this is beautiful too. And then at the same time, another project, because my projects, they are like the chapters of my life, and they are really personal, but at the same time pertains to a general issue in my country. But they are just like a life journeys inside me and outside, to find these women, to have conversation with them. And one of them is Shanasname. I have 5 minutes? Or okay. So for Shanasname, again, it started with a very personal story. These are the women of Shanasname who helped me with this project. And it started with a day which I was waiting in a reception room with my mother and holding our birth certificate. Our birth certificate in Iran, they are like booklets. And it contains your name, surname, fingerprints, and the photograph. I was holding my mother's birth certificate and my birth certificate, and it was just like seeing them for the very first time in my life, or seeing myself in 33 years. We look absolutely similar in our photographs, ID photographs. But at the same time and at the same day, they asked us to fix our fingerprint next to our photographs. And they were so different, and that is part of your identity. All of us, we have these fingerprints, and that is part of our identity. So I decided, I get back home, I had my fingerprints, and that day I had a scar, that white part, on my finger, and actually that became part of my identity, and still is there. And this scar can be your finger, in your heart, in your mind, and you carry that, and that is part of you. So I started on this project with this wonderful woman, my mother, obviously the first image which I had, and then for 3 years I started and I continue to collect the ID photographs of these women, how they look similar through this representation and their standards. But still a look, they are still really different individuals, but I guess that's the reason you need to look closer to them with different eyes, maybe a little bit deeper to see the differences. And then they were the fingerprints, which is your identity, and no one can even change one line. They cannot replace one line. Nobody, not any rule, not any religion. That is what it is. And maybe instead of seeing those faces, similarities, and see these women with this black cover, with the same stories of religious story, maybe it's time to look at the differences and how a small part of her being can show how different she is from the other. And this is again self-censorship, which is always part of the project. I found this while I was working on that project. I found it in the street, and obviously this lady, this girl, she torn the page before throwing it away, not to be reused, not to be identified. And then I found through the friend who is working for the registration office in Karaj, one of the cities of Tehran, the photographs which were rejected. But for some reason they were scratched because of the makeup, because of the eyeline. For this girl, I had it like few months in front of everywhere in the house, and I was thinking she cannot have any makeup because she's really young. But obviously these are the rejected ones, unfortunately. And for this, I wasn't sure if I like to add it, or I am brave enough to add it as part of this project, because I didn't want anyone, again, the same story, to feel pity for these women. But at the same time, after many conversations through 5 years, I found it, people mostly feel really pity for the person who had done this. And at the end, this project became as an object, which is a book, the same size as the original passport and birth certificate, and you can find the copy of the book in the corridor on the table. And that was the last chapter which I work on. Thank you.